YouTube. Today's topic is looking at 4 specific cards in order that come in the major arcana, starting with Justice and moving to Temperance. I got this idea from Lindsay Mack's Wild Soul, Tarot for the Wild Soul podcast. The October monthly medicine episode, she talks about October and moving from Libra to Scorpio, and those corresponding cards are Justice and Death. So moving from Justice card to the Death card. And I wanted to expand a little bit on it and pull in, this isn't astrological, but pull in the cards that come in the middle of those two, the Hanged Man, and then Temperance that follows after Death. So Lindsay talks about this transition from Justice, and the way she teaches Justice is as sort of acknowledging what's present. So justice can't happen if we aren't realistic about what is real, what is true, what is actually happening. We can't have change until we acknowledge what's present. And then Death, of course, is that change and that clearing and that Scorpio energy. So I love that concept. Here's the Justice card. I love that concept of thinking about justice as what is, because I think that actually it's a good complement to some of the other interpretations I've seen, which are about, justice is not, it's not just like laws or rules that other people establish. It's about your personal values, your sense of right and wrong. Like, it encourages you to think about what's going on here. And I think you can do that with the addition of really thinking about what is present and real. So if, for example, my value, like one of the things that I hold important for justice is that I do believe that we need radical change in this country. I believe that we need revolution. We need to, have a powerful radical change because our systems are pretty much all broken. But in order to have that change, you need to start with acknowledging what is. There are so many people who are in willful ignorance about the current state of the country, that, it would be difficult to have the kind of radical movement that I'm envisioning until more of those people are awake to what is actually going on. So that, to me, is a very justice energy. Then you have the Hanged Man, or in this deck, just the Hang, which I like, non-gendered version. So this is a transition. I think it's interesting. So if we think of justice as being acknowledgement of what is before we can get to death, which is the change, you even have to go one more step of inaction in the Hanged, where you need to, it's radical inaction. It is the pause that isn't just a pause, but it's painful. You're in this state of the Hanged. It's very uncomfortable. You have to not just acknowledge what is, but actually sit in the emotional discomfort, sit in empathy for those who are being harmed. Really feel that pain as much as you can without acting, which may shift your perspective then on what exactly needs to be changed and what that change looks like. So it gives you the preparation, it's further preparation for Death card. And Death, of course, being all about change, clearing in the tarot, being about clearing out what doesn't serve, making space for the new. And then I think it's important to look at Temperance. And to me, Temperance is actually in some ways almost the true justice card, in the sense of what you might expect justice to be about, or maybe you could say even liberation. To me, temperance is like, once you've made the change, it is the result. Temperance to me, it's about blending, it's about flow, it's about this perfect kind of balance, the water going back and forth in this way that requires divine assistance. It is what is meant to be. It is that true liberation that we all deserve and we are all waiting for. And the state we are striving for, which includes equity, justice, liberation, all those kinds of words. To me, those 4 cards make a really good cycle. To give one example of this in practice, how it might be applied, you can look at white anti-racism. So this example comes to my head because I think it is very common when white folks are waking up to the extent of racism in this country that we kind of go backwards along that cycle in a weird way of thinking we're at each card, and then we actually get to the beginning of the cycle, and that is when we start the real journey. And so I think a lot of times white folks start from thinking they're in temperance. So thinking that we have solved the problem, thinking we're already there. This is folks who say, it's 2018, we've come so far, we're already, nobody I know is racist, or I'm not involved in racism. We are liberated, we're good, we're here. And then we reach a point of realizing, wait, that's not true. We sort of start to wake up to the world around us. We start to open our eyes and go, actually it's a problem. Racism is still an ongoing problem, and we need change. And so often we come to the stage of action, action, action. I've been in a lot of white anti-racist spaces where, folks are asked what they need, and it's always we need action. We're tired of this self-development stuff. We just want to act, which is actually a part of white supremacy culture, is the feeling that you always have to be acting. So it's interesting, I think a lot of times white folks especially don't want to take those first 2 steps of inaction because we are so culturally attuned to let's do something. And when we're in this place, we think we are in the death card. We think we're in change and let's go and we're ready. But we are often at this point thinking of everything as external to ourselves and thinking of change as we need to stop the racist people. We need to stop our friends and family without deeply interrogating our own beliefs and values and racist behaviors. So when we're in this place, we think that we can change things and get to the ideal of the temperance state, but we really couldn't because we don't know exactly what needs to be changed. We aren't acknowledging what needs to be changed internally. And then I think we do back up a little again, and we hit a point of being actually, shoot, I do need to, I'm not actually ready for this change. We're not actually there yet. So we start to see that we're part of the problem. And then we get into a place where I think we think we're in the hangman. So we feel a lot of this oh my gosh, who says this? It might be, I want to say it's Layla Assad, but I don't think that's right. Somebody recently I read talking about the concept of white flailing, and I love that terminology. I'll put it below if I can find it. White flailing, but this idea, I know who it was. It was Sandra Kim of Everyday Feminism. So white flailing, all this emotional stuff, white guilt, shame, we get really in our feelings and we're this is okay, I'm in the hanged now. I'm feeling that discomfort, I'm feeling that pain. But we're not really, because it's still very egoic here. We're still very much, we are feeling discomfort and pain, but we're not really feeling it in the way that is going to ultimately shift our perspective to really understand and really be empathetic. And of course, we could never understand the experiences of people of color entirely, but I think often in this space, we aren't listening. We're not really, an important part of the hanged is that stillness allows us deep listening. It allows us to observe, it allows us to be completely still. And when we're flailing about, we're really not still. We might be feeling discomfort, but we aren't at that place of stillness. We aren't ready to release the ego. We aren't ready to deeply listen to the painful truths of others' experiences. So finally we get back to the justice card, and we realize that we're at a space where we just need to be aware of what's going on. So we hit a place of better being able to listen, focusing on listening, focusing on trying to deeply understand the problem, trying to understand racism, and to understand ourselves, our own involvement. Identity development work is important in this stage, because like once we finally understand that in order for change to occur we have to be realistic about what is, then we have to do some deep looking at ourselves, our communities, and the communities of color that we are actively oppressing, and get into that work. And that's a long, deep work, and I think we continue to have justice work even if we are also doing other work along the cycle, because it is a spiral, it's not a straight line or a circle. We keep kind of coming back and revisiting the same themes, but I think justice work in this sense is super important for white anti-racist people to examine. And then maybe we do get to the space of really being in the hanged, and we do get to that space of stillness. We've kind of processed our emotions as we're trying to understand what is, as we're doing the justice card. A lot of emotions may come up, and then I think we get to a place, not where we're not emotional, but just we get to more of a place of the hanged, of stillness. I think of Adrienne Marie Brown's book Emergent Strategy here, and how reading that book has helped me to move into more of a space of the hanged, where you're feeling the discomfort, but you're not flailing, you're just you're listening, you're observing patterns around you, patterns in nature and how they relate to patterns in human populations. You're in a place where you can listen even deeper than you do in your initial explorations. And then hopefully, we get to the space where we can take action and make change from an informed perspective, and not as leaders, as white people in this movement, as people in solidarity. Because our role in the death card for this particular example, for racism, is not the role of a leader. It is a supportive role. And so, we get to the point, and on a grander scale, the revolution is coming, but I think it can also be on a smaller scale. We get to the point where we can make changes in our communities, we can be involved in supporting those changes, so that we get, and more importantly, the people around us, people of color around us, indigenous people around us, get to feel the feeling of temperance, and get to experience that liberation, and we get to be a part of it. And I think when we get there, we will know it to be true. I think when we get there, I believe that there is a seeing that is deeper than when we thought we were there way back at the beginning of the cycle. So yeah, let me know what you think about this in the comments. I'm really curious if this resonates for you. Either the white anti-racism example, or just the general idea of moving through these cards, of going back and forth sometimes. Where has this shown up in your life? Where do you disagree? I would love to start a conversation about these cards in the comments. And if you do enjoy this content, I have lots of other tarot goodness, and I'm looking forward to discussing different cards. So please do like and subscribe so that you don't miss it.